You have seen it happen. The afternoon sky, bright and ordinary. And then something begins to eat the sun. The light curdles. The birds fall silent and return to their nests in the middle of the day. A cold wind crosses the land, and for a few minutes the world hangs in a gray, unnatural dusk, as if creation itself has forgotten which hour it is. Every people who ever looked up has feared this moment. And in ancient India, when the darkness came, the villages did not hide. They ran into the streets. They beat drums and rang the temple bells. They blew conch shells and shouted at the sky, not to celebrate, but to frighten away the thing they believed was swallowing the sun whole, because they knew its name. And they knew that long ago, it had been a man. Welcome back to Myth and Ruin, where we dig through the forgotten folklore of India and the world for the stories that were too strange, too dark, or too dangerous to be remembered cleanly. Today's tale is one that most people only half know. It is the story of how the gods themselves became immortal, and of the terrible price the universe paid for it. It is the story of a severed head that still haunts the heavens to this day. And at the center of it stands the most beautiful figure in all of Hindu myth, and quietly the most dangerous of them all. A god who became a woman who was a weapon. The single most beautiful lie ever told. Her name was Mohini. But to understand what she did, you must go back to a time when even the gods were dying. The gods were not always immortal. There was an age when the Devas, the shining ones, grew weak. A great sage had been insulted by their king, and in his fury he laid down a curse that the gods would lose their strength, their fortune, and their light. And so, they began to fade, their splendor dimmed like a lamp running out of oil. And across the cosmos, their ancient enemies, the Asuras, watched and grew bold. The Asuras were not simply evil. They were the gods' own cousins, born of the same father, hungry for the same throne of heaven. As the Devas weakened, the Asuras rose, and the balance of the universe began to tip toward darkness. The gods went to Vishnu, the preserver, the one whose task is to keep creation from falling apart. And Vishnu told them a single, impossible thing. Somewhere at the bottom of the cosmic ocean of milk lay Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Drink it, and they would never weaken again. But it could not be reached by gods alone. To win immortality, the Devas would have to do the unthinkable. They would have to join hands with the demons. What followed was the strangest truce in all of mythology. Gods and demons, sworn to destroy one another, agreed to churn the ocean of milk together to bring up the nectar. But you cannot churn an ocean with your hands. So they took a mountain, Mount Mandara, and stood it upright as the churning staff. The mountain began to sink into the soft seabed, until Vishnu himself slid beneath the waves in the form of a colossal tortoise and bore the entire mountain upon his back. Remember that. Remember how easily the preserver changes his shape. Then they took Vaski, the king of serpents, a snake large enough to wrap the world, and they coiled him around the mountain as the churning rope. The gods seized the serpent's tail. The demons, proud, demanded the head. And so it began. They pulled and pulled, the mountain spinning, the great serpent grinding, the ocean roaring and rising into waves the height of cities. For 1,000 years they churned, but the ocean does not give up its treasures easily. The first thing the churning brought to the surface was not a gift. It was a horror. A black-blue venom called hala hala began to boil up from the depths, a poison so potent that its fumes alone could wither every world, every god, every demon, all of creation, in a single breath. Both armies recoiled in terror. And in that moment, it was Shiva, the destroyer, who stepped forward. To save all things, he gathered the poison of the universe into his own cupped hands and drank it. His wife seized his throat to stop the venom from reaching his heart and spreading into the cosmos. The poison lodged there, in his neck, and stained it a deep and permanent blue. From that day he was called Nilkanth, the blue-throated one. The poison had been swallowed. The churning could continue. One by one, the wonders of the deep rose into the light. The wish-fulfilling cow, mother of all cattle. The divine horse, white as the moon. A tree whose flowers never wither. The moon itself, pale and cold, which Shiva set upon his brow. And then, rising on a single perfect lotus, came Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune and beauty, returning the splendor the gods had lost. The cosmos held its breath, for the demons knew, and the gods knew, that all of this was only the prelude. The ocean was building toward one final gift. And then the waters parted a last time, and a figure rose from the foam, a radiant physician of the gods, and cradled in his arms a single pot that glowed from within. The Amrita, the nectar of immortality, had come at last. And in an instant, 1,000 years of cooperation turned to ash. The strongest of the Asuras lunged forward and tore the pot from the physician's hands. The truce was over. Why share immortality with your enemy when you can simply take it? The demons fell back with their prize, snarling triumphant, already passing the nectar among themselves. And the gods stood frozen on the shore. They had churned the ocean for 1,000 years. They had endured the poison. They had done everything right. And they had lost everything. In the silence of their despair, Vishnu the Preserver spoke quietly to the gods. He told them to do nothing, to say nothing, to simply watch. And then he was gone. The demons were quarreling over the pot, each wanting the first and largest share, when she appeared. No one saw her come. One moment the shore was empty, and the next, a woman stood at the water's edge, and the universe seemed to lean toward her. She was beautiful in a way that was almost a kind of violence. It was not a beauty that pleased the eye. It was a beauty that emptied the mind. The strongest demons forgot their grievances. They forgot the nectar in their hands. Warriors who had churned an ocean and defied the gods now stood slack-jawed and silent, every thought draining out of them like water from cupped fingers. When at last one of them found his voice and asked her name, she smiled. She called herself Mohini. In the old tongue, the name means the deluder. She who bewilders the senses. She who makes you forget what you came for. They should have run. Instead, they fell in love. The demons who, a moment before, had been ready to kill one another over the nectar now, did something extraordinary. They offered the pot to her. "You are the most beautiful being we have ever seen," they said. "Surely one so perfect could not be unfair. Divide the nectar between us. We will accept whatever you decide." Mohini took the glowing pot into her hands and considered them with those dark, unreadable eyes. She agreed, but on one condition. They must obey her completely. Whatever she did, whatever they saw, however strange it seemed, they were not to interrupt, not to question, not to break her command. The demons, drunk on her presence, swore it gladly. They would have promised her anything. And so she arranged them. The gods, dim and desperate, she seated in one long row. The demons, proud and gleaming, she seated in another facing them. Then Mohini lifted the pot and began to move down the rows, pouring. To the gods, she gave the nectar. True nectar, real immortality, poured drop by precious drop into their cupped and trembling hands. But to the demons, she gave something else entirely. She gave them her attention. She lingered. She turned to them with a glance, a word, a tilt of the head, and each time she approached their row, she found a reason to delay. A graceful pause, a soft laugh, a promise that their turn was coming, that the best had been saved for last. And the demons, bewitched, did not notice that the pot never quite reached their lips. They did not notice the gods drinking deep across from them. They watched only her. By the time the spell began to thin, by the time the first demon blinked and looked down at his own empty hands, it was already too late. The gods had drunk. The pot was nearly dry, and immortality had passed entirely to one side of that shore. And here is the part of the story that most people never hear. As the last of the nectar left the pot, the woman called Mohini turned away from the shore, and as she turned, she began to change. The teal silk, the jasmine, the dark and devastating eyes, all of it dissolved like mist burning off at dawn. The skin deepened to a cosmic blue. A second pair of arms unfolded. A crown of gold caught the light, and in those four hands appeared a conch, a lotus, a mace, and a slowly spinning discus. Mohini had never been a woman at all. Mohini was Vishnu, the preserver of the universe, the upholder of order and righteousness, had saved the cosmos not with his discus, not with his strength, and not with the truth. He had saved it by becoming a woman and telling the most beautiful lie ever told. Sit with that for a moment. The gods did not win immortality because they deserved it. They won it because their protector was willing to deceive. And in that single act, the line between the divine and the demonic, between dharma and deceit, grew very, very thin. But one demon had not been wholly blinded. His name was Svarbhanu. He was cunning where the others were merely strong, patient where the others were greedy. And while every other demon had drowned himself in Mohini's eyes, Svarbhanu had watched her hands. He had seen the nectar going only one way. He had understood, before any of his kind, that they were being robbed of eternity itself. So Svarbhanu did something no demon had ever dared. He did not lunge. He did not fight. Instead, he disguised himself. He took on the radiant form of a god, and quietly, calmly, he rose and crossed to the other row. He slipped into a gap in the line of gods, into the one seat between Surya, the sun, and Chandra, the moon. And when Mohini, still pouring, came at last to him, she poured the nectar of immortality straight into the waiting hands of her enemy. And Svarbhanu drank. But the sun and the moon see everything. They are the two great eyes of the sky, and you cannot hide in the open from those who watch the world all day and all night. Surya and Chandra, seated on either side of the disguised demon, knew that face. They had seen it on the battlefield. And as the nectar touched Svarbhanu's lips, they cried out together, pointing, naming him, tearing away his disguise with a single shout. The deception cut both ways that day. The god who came as a deceiver was for one heartbeat deceived. Mohini turned, and in her hand, in his hand, the spinning discus, the Sudarshana chakra, the weapon of 1,000 edges that never misses, began to glow. The discus flew. It crossed the space between them faster than thought, faster than the demon could rise, and it struck Svarbhanu clean through the neck. His head left his shoulders, and it should have ended there. But here the universe made its great mistake, or perhaps its great joke, because the nectar of immortality had already passed Svarbhanu's lips. It had already touched his throat, and so his head could not die. The body, which had not yet swallowed, fell lifeless to the shore. But the head, the severed head, dripping golden nectar, eyes wide and burning, the head lived. It lived, and it would go on living for as long as the universe itself endured. The gods had created something that should not exist. An immortal piece of a demon. A head with no body, full of hate, that could never ever die. The severed immortal head became known as Rahu, and the lifeless body became Ketu, a shadow trailing behind. Two halves of one ruined demon scattered across the sky. Rahu rose into the heavens consumed by a single eternal rage. He did not blame Vishnu. He did not blame the discus. He blamed the two who had pointed and named him, the sun and the moon. From that day to this one, Rahu hunts them across the sky. He chases Surya and Chandra without rest, and every so often, he catches one of them. And when he does, he opens that immortal mouth and swallows the sun, or the moon, whole, and the world below goes dark in the middle of the day. That is the eclipse. That is the thing your ancestors beat their drums to frighten away. But Rahu is only a head. He has no throat, no stomach, no body to hold what he swallows. And so the sun and the moon slide out through his severed neck, and the light returns to the world. Forever the chase, forever the swallowing, forever the escape. A vengeance that can never be completed, written across the sky for everyone, in every age, to look up and fear. So now you know. When the sky goes dark in the middle of the day, when the birds fall silent and the cold wind crosses the land, what you are watching is the end of a story that began at the bottom of the ocean of milk. You are watching a demon's revenge against the witnesses who betrayed him. You are watching the consequence of a god who chose to become a woman and a lie to save a universe that could not be saved any other way. The gods got their immortality, but they paid for it. They created a hatred that can never die, set loose in the heavens above every head on earth. And they learned a truth that the old stories only ever whisper, that the preserver of all things, the very God of righteousness, kept the universe in order with the most beautiful deception ever spoken. Order, it turns out, is sometimes held together by a lie. But here is what the storytellers do not tell you at the churning of the ocean. Mohini was not finished. The deluder, the most beautiful weapon ever forged, would walk the world again. And the next time she appeared, her beauty would not be used to save the universe. It would be used to destroy a god, to make one of the mightiest beings in all creation lay his own hand upon his own head and burn himself to ash, smiling all the while. That is a story for another night. The old tales are not finished with us. They never were. This has been Myth and Ruin. Keep your drums close. The next eclipse is coming.